Good morning, everybody. Hello and welcome. I have a very esteemed panel of experts here this morning, and we're talking on a program, of course, it's called the Taste of Pine Avenue Garden Project, which is a very unique collaborative program. Our team of experts include Stan Dorr, which I will have introduce himself.
Hello, my name is Stan Dorr, and I'm the president and CEO of an organization called ECHO. Our international office is based in Fort Myers, Florida. And we have offices in Thailand, Tanzania, Burkina Faso, and South Africa. And we basically collect ideas of agriculture, ways in which people can grow food, often under very difficult conditions, and become a repository for that information and find ways to get it out into the hands of people, whether it's plants, genetic material, techniques, appropriate technologies. We have a collection of those from all over the planet.
Fantastic. Michael Miller is our next panelist.
Yes, I'm a designer. I'm in the 49th year of being a professional designer. Started out with automobiles at Ford and was vice chief of design for Volkswagen. And that was in the 60s and 70s. And in the 80s, my wife and I fled Germany because of the corporate politics was a little stifling to creative sensibilities. And we actually fled to Anna Maria to become artists and designers here. And then I got into residential architecture, which led to interior design also, and then landscaping. And at the same time had a volunteer project going in Anna Maria around the City Hall, in which I discovered specific lists of native plants specific to the spot that you're planting them in. And I got doing that over 20 years, I developed a whole new philosophy of design where we landscape for the restoration of the identity of the place by doing 100% native to the spot they're planted in. And in doing that, I ended up meeting Ed Chiles, and when they did a project to restore the natural identity of Anna Maria's business district, I got into that. And
fascinating.
I've been in landscape ever since. Mm-hmm.
That's terrific. Our next panelist is Nan Summers. Nan, could you give us some insight on yourself?
Sure, Ross. I'm currently the coordinator of continuing education for the University of South Florida, Sarasota, Manalee, College of Hospitality, Technology, and Leadership. And this is a perfect combination of where education and industry and community come together, which is not the first time I've had the opportunity to do that. One of my previous roles was head of professional development for Walt Disney's Imagineering design team during the building of Epcot Center, where we took a lot of the themes that were what we had to face in the world, which is feeding people with the land pavilion, solving energy and water, conservation ideas. And so going back to those days and seeing how people of all ages can come together and address creative solutions to the challenges of the world. And that's right what we're doing.
Terrific.
With this project.
And then, and lastly, Ed Chiles, if you could give us some insight of how you were involved in this program as well.
Well, I have the privilege of owning 3 waterfront restaurants out on Anna Maria Island, 2 there and 1 on the north end of Longboat Key, the Sandbar, the Beach House, and the Mar Vista. And I also have been heavily involved for the last 6 years as the managing partner of the Pine Avenue Restoration Project. And that was a project where we were concerned that we were losing our ability to have a small business district on the historic street in Anna Maria that had linked the city pier, the gateway to the island, where the modern history of the island development began in 1911, down to the Gulf side where the Sandbar restaurant sits. And in doing that project, we wanted to do it in a green fashion, in a way that reflected the character and the low-rise integrity that makes the island so special. We wanted to do the greenest project that would ever been done in the city. We wanted to do native landscape and not use pavers and asphalt. And that's where I got involved with Mike Miller, who has done all of our project and all of the landscaping that gives it such a unique look. And we went from there to having the kind of shops that had a great vibe to it and added something to the city. And then an idea sprung up about organic community gardens that Mike grabbed a hold of. And so I've been part of that and really enjoyed my part in that. I also have the Gamble Creek Farm that we have just done a long-term lease on, which is the former CSA out in Parrish, and also am a part owner of Three Boys, the first organic hydroponic certified USDA farm.
And some project, to say the least.
Yeah.
So looking from the perspective, I'm somebody, I'm totally clueless about the program. I have no idea how this program actually works. I'm going to throw this out to the entire panel. How, in a nutshell, and obviously that isn't quite so easy, because obviously it sounds like there's a whole series of moving elements. To the average person on the street, what does the program, what is the main benefit of the program, and how does it involve all of you to make this work together as a collaborative program? Can I throw that out to Mike?
Okay. It's funny about that question because the answer to it is we don't quite know yet. We actually backed into this program because it started because the merchants who occupy the buildings that he has, they have sort of a loosely knit organization now of a merchants association sort of thing. And the whole idea is to make this little street that we've got going there more interesting, obviously, to bring more people in, and to make it a much more interesting experience there. And they were the ones who were asked, well, what do you want to do? And they said, off the top of their head, because it's so popular around the whole United States, is, oh, why don't we do a community garden? And Ed said, excuse me, we don't have any land for a community garden in this, at $1 million, residence.
Bring your own pot.
And that's when we got into this thing, well, why don't we do earth boxes? And I said, oh, they're so, it's not what the image we want. And Ed said, just put the food down the street. And at first, the project led me. The very first thing I said, Ed, you can't grow vegetables in Florida in the summer, and if you don't have abundance out there, it's not going to enhance the stores. So I went online and I just put in there, in Google, I said, okay, vegetables, Southwest Florida, summer, and right at the top of the page was Echo. And Echo, who gathers all of these hyper-nutritious tropical vegetables for the particular lands who need them, has also a nursery, and that was the ultimate solution for us, because what it meant was that the centers of our boxes, we may have conventional vegetables around the edges, but the centers were totally supplied by Echo. We planted them in May, and now they're 7 feet tall and 4 feet wide, and the biggest complaint we have now is people are not harvesting them fast enough.
Which can't be a good way to go.
So what happens now is the project now is leading me. Instead of me dragging the project into existence, now that they're out there, the project keeps giving new ideas. Every time you talk to someone about it, you have a new idea. Something new comes along.
So amongst the panel, I mean, because it's a collaborative project, and obviously it sounds like with any of these collaborative projects these days, things keep constantly changing because it's such a new business model, correct?
Yes, the definition of the project changes.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Stan, I'm sorry, I'm having a kind of brain fade there. Stan, so from your perspective with Echo, working with Mike, what do you feel the benefits are? Obviously, we've heard some of that for the community. Give us some of your input on this and how all this is meshed together between yourself and Mike. And so we've got some series of steps here, how this has been coming to fruition.
Well, the fun part about agriculture is that it is so suited for where you come from. And many people in the United States, we come from the upper Midwest, from the temperate zones, and your traditional idea of what is a vegetable is based on what is grown in those areas. It's not, so you ask people, what's a vegetable? Well, it's a tomato, it's a pea, it's a carrot, it's a beetroot, it's a cabbage, lettuce, those kind of things. And those are the only kind of vegetables many times you can grow in those areas because they're temperate. You have a definite growing season, then it freezes over, everything dies, you have to start over again. And so you plant annuals. The beauty of the tropics is that you can plant it and something can grow year after year after year. And so what Echo specializes in many times, in many parts, for many parts of the world, is what we call perennial vegetables. Now, they're not going to be your traditional vegetable, but why do you eat vegetables? Do you eat them because just the taste or the way they look, or do you eat them because of the mineral and vitamin components of those products? And if you can get good taste out of the same time, why not? And if you can plant it once, and instead of having to plant it again 6 months later or a year later, it grows and you can harvest off of it. You can cut it off with things like the moringa tree, which you can, I mean, I grew it in the Sahara Desert when I lived there. I grew it in a 5-gallon bucket on my front porch. And it got to 3 feet tall. I cut it off to a foot tall, stripped all the leaves off the branches I cut off, ate those, dried them, ate them fresh, put them in salads, whatever. And within weeks, that plant was growing again. We grew our lettuce in a little container garden. And so these are the kind of things we've seen working all over the world. And yet, because it kind of goes counter to what people would traditionally think of in the area of what a garden is supposed to look like and what's supposed to be in a garden, it doesn't make sense, or people don't pick up on it until they see it happening in some place like this. And they think it suddenly starts triggering. That's the whole concept behind the Echo Farm that we have in Fort Myers, is we have 50 acres with the largest collection of tropical fruits and vegetables in the United States. And it's not there as a botanical garden. It's there because people come from all over the world to see ways in which, oh, that's pretty amazing. I've never thought of that. I could do that at my place. And that's exactly the way it picked up here is, wait a minute, that's not the way I learned it in Ohio or Michigan,
Right.
But by golly, that could work right here in Florida.
So this is truly like food for thought then in that case, no pun intended.
Yeah, nice. I mean, but for us, it's very fulfilling because most of our work has been international. And then when the economic difficulties came in 2007, 2008, we realized that hunger wasn't just an international issue, it was a local issue. And so, you know, we began working with schools and community centers in Southwest Florida. And so to see something like this happening here, and not only is it going to help this commercial section, or this section of the island, but people are going to look at that and say, well, if they can do it, I can do it.
That's already happening.
And it's already happening.
Yes, already.
Yeah, and I was actually going to say that's a great lead in. I mean, Ed, from your perspective, work obviously with the community and local businesses, and obviously with your own businesses. What are you seeing as the major benefits, and how is this working as far as you're concerned?
Well, it's people are so interested in it. You know, and this is just, I've got goosebumps here. Meeting Stan and seeing what you're doing and how you're spreading this all around the world. I mean, what you're doing is so incredibly important because it's what we all ought to be doing.
Yeah.
These gardens ought to be in everybody's small business district, and they ought to be in everybody's homes. Mm-hmm. And now I have one in my home, and I have one in front of all of the stores. And I'm learning about, and my mother has one. I mean, we went from 8 to then
20. We have 25 or 26 boxes,
and it's going viral.
Wow.
And I didn't know about
square feet each.
Cool.
I didn't know what
really
these
cool.
were. I mean, I didn't know about any of the vegetables that are in this garden, and now I eat all of them almost every day. And I'm a foodie.
Yeah,
and if you're a foodie, you want to know about moringa, and you want to know about edible hibiscus, and you want to know about roselle, and you want to know about katuk, and you want to know about Malabar spinach. They go in. I had them in my super smoothie this morning,
right?
And I do that every day. And we generally take them and we saute them, or we do a little bit of olive oil and garlic at night and grill them or bake them. My mom is baking now with moringa, and to see something that is that healthy and that good for you, and you know exactly where it came from, and it's not something that's been genetically altered, and you can grow it on the scale that you can grow it. Mike said, you know, nobody thought you could grow anything in the summer in Florida. I'm just getting involved in the farming business, and I can't wait to talk to you about the things that we ought to be growing, the kales and the things like that are super nutritious, and sharing people both an organic way and in regular farming.
Do you think there's a kind of transitional shift actually for everybody. Is there a kind of transitional shift now? I mean, I've heard some of the terms like clean eating. Obviously, everybody knows about organic and sustainable,
Yes.
and we see a lot, obviously, out in California and Oregon. Are you finding more and more demand for that? I mean, I just know amongst my friends, which are pretty diverse, but there is more and more demand. The restaurants which are doing more of that type of produce seem to be doing some terrific business. So, I mean, is that something that you're seeing?
As a restaurateur, you know, that's what everyone is looking for now. Localvore is the most important movement in the food business, and I've been in it in 34 years. It's the most important change in our industry that I've seen, and because it lowers the carbon footprint.
Right.
You're not trucking it halfway across the country. It's super nutritious, and we want to know where our food is coming from, and we want to know how it's grown. And this is a great close-up way for you to do it, but more importantly, to find these things that can grow, as Stan said, in this environment. I mean, the fact that this has all come together through what we have all been doing separately, but then coming together, and then things start happening from that. An example of that is my daughter is in Thailand doing mission work. Stan has an office in Chiang Mai, which is near Mae Sot. And so Kristen is over there working with the refugees. And now, because of the work and because of this coming together, they're looking at how do they do that and make that part of their program, and how do they get these plants, and how do they get those folks growing what can grow and grow very easily and very economically, and that will give them great sustenance and the you know, all the minerals and everything else that they need, like moringa.
I was going to say on that point, I mean, it's obviously that's a very, very important part. I personally found, and this is something we can talk about later, I mean, the bottom line with a lot of people, it's taste. And the taste of the fresh produce there's just no comparison. Sure. There's no comparison to anything which is trucked in or is days and days old. One thing I certainly want to bring up here at this point, because we're talking about the educational, we're already talking about the community, but there's obviously the educational aspect. And that actually, let me throw this out to Nan, because Nan, you've obviously had a lot of involvement with this. So can you kind of fill everybody in on exactly how the students become involved with this, and then the international aspect of that as well?
Perfect, and thank you, Mike, for a phone call that we had, and we were talking about my moving into this new role, and he was telling me about this project, and it was like boom, boom, because early this summer we had our first group of students from the National Kaohsiung University of Tourism and Hospitality in Taiwan, and this was the first international group that the USF Sarasota Manatee has had. So we had 9 students coming over who came over in July, and then we also had a chef, a visiting chef from Turkey, Barak Mile, who has won 57 national awards where he comes from. And so one of the first things we did when the students got here is I took them to Echo. And Chef was with us, and Vic was our guide, and Vic is an amazing volunteer. And so the students, and we had a contingency of other Turkish people there, archaeology professors and all kinds of people that were here. So we had multiple languages, and food transcends all languages, but they got so excited about Echo. And then the next step that we all did together with the Chiles group was to come up and visit the actual gardens. And not only that, but we were able to time it when the deans from Taiwan came over. There are 2 deans, so we really juggled it around to do that. And we also had Dr. David Randall come down from the Patel College of Global Sustainability at USF out of Tampa. And some of our culinary, we had a whole collection of people that came. And what they did was had a chance to see the gardens and look at the merchants, and then following that, we went to the Sandbar restaurant and had a course tasting that they will remember for the rest of their lives. They were absolutely blown away, not just the students, but the rest of us who were privileged to be part of that. And so what we decided to do was a service learning project where the students would actually work with the chef to create recipes from these vegetables. And then we're targeting for a tasting on November 15th, which is the porch party that happens as a community event. So the Taiwanese students will be preparing the tasting with the recipes. And then we added another layer with the middle school students from Sarasota School of Arts and Sciences. And they are doing the recipe cards, the graphics, the production of all the materials that go along with this. So then the Taiwanese students went to the middle school and gave them presentations about ECHO and about your project here. So they told them the whole story, about 60 students. And now you've got from, if we can say your age?
Yes.
That's it.
With pride.
With pride, from 75 to 11 years old are lined up doing
All
this
hugging
project.
and giggly photographs.
And the one other thing when you mentioned, Ross, about
Yes.
the international and the dean came back for our Taste of Taiwan this week. The deans were so excited, and there's almost 5,000 students at this university focused
Great.
on tourism. Everything goes on Facebook. That whole university knows what we're doing, and they're tracking this.
Yeah.
And so they're.
Power of social media.
I like to
you
say that
said viral.
It's amazing.
this is, when I
like
said before that
yeah.
the project now leads us, when you think the word community garden, about the first thing that hits your head is you're going to supply yourself with vegetables at your house. And, or your business, whatever it is. But the idea of the public community garden that then enabled us to do all of this, and Ed and his restaurant to go in there and so forth, and bring the tasting in. And I can tell you that the whole concept has changed to where now the purpose has very little to do with supplying oneself with food. It's basically become a massive lifestyle enhancement.
Yes, that's a great way to put it.
Yes,
Yes.
and it goes from Ed and the foodies, all of us, the foodies out there, oh my God, look at this. Oh, have you tried this? Oh, we have actually on each box, we have a little post. And on that post is a little sign, and on that sign is the logo of Pine Avenue Restoration, and right under that is the logo of the sponsor who paid for the box, and right under that is the logo and website of each,
Right.
and the logo of ECHO, and they go in there, and down below there is my website, perfectisland.us, and on that there's a link right in. There's a link, well, that's important
Sorry,
because
go ahead.
there's a link right there at the top of the page to our page about the vegetables,
Right.
and a QR code at the bottom that they can scan. So they can scan this code, stand right in front of the box,
Yeah.
and get this web
Terrific.
page with
Terrific.
pictures of each of the vegetables and explanations of them, plus the explanation of how we did the permaculture sheet mulch box, plus the explanation of what ECHO is and where
Right.
they could go to the tour. Plus down at the bottom, we're starting a community garden of recipes developed around the ECHO products that people will contribute as they eat these and develop the recipes. I've already got 8 recipes on there right now.
So there's so many exciting aspects to this.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
Let me tell you what I did
Yeah.
last night. Last night for dinner, we had smoked mullet, Anthony Manalee smoked mullet. And this is the time of the year the locals know that mullet's absolutely the fattest and the best. And Anthony's been stone crabbing for us and getting our mullet and a lot of our fish for 34 years. And he literally lives
Terrific,
right across the street
terrific.
from the sandbar. So we had beautiful piece of fat smoked mullet. And along with that, I had squash blossoms. Stuffed squash blossoms.
Really?
From the community garden.
Yeah, right.
From the edible hibiscus. And they're the most beautiful things you've ever seen. And I whipped up the ricotta and some goat cheese and a little bit of avocado and a little bit of garlic in there. And put them into a little baggie and cut a little hole and piped that into those beautiful squash blossoms, rolled them in a little organic egg, then a little almond meal flour, and a little bit of toasted pistachios and sauteed those in olive oil. And for a foodie, it doesn't get any better.
Oh yeah, it does.
I'm getting
For
hungry.
breakfast. Yes, it does, Ed.
I picked that at 5:30, just as it was the light was starting to fade, and I was eating that at 7 o'clock from our organic community gardens. That's the top of the list.
Oh, and at 7 o'clock this morning, I went out to the Chinese spinach plant and picked 2 handfuls of Chinese spinach leaves, took them in, washed them, very lightly breaded them with urad flour, and sauteed them in butter that we had with our scrambled eggs this morning. And when you fry a Chinese spinach leaf, it's like you fry it just like bacon, you know, and you put it on the paper towel and dry it, and then you take it and put it in your mouth, and it almost dissolves in your mouth.
So actually, because it's international, and actually, Sandy, you can answer this, because this is so international, we're actually gaining new recipes and new tastes,
No question about
so things we haven't experienced beforehand.
And it reduces your sugar numbers, and there's right on the Chinese spinach, so they allege from Korea.
Well, I mean, all the key factors these days
and
are all the
there's,
sodium,
and there's
sugar,
so many
etc.
other aspects to it. I mean, I think the studies that are showing that the way traditional agriculture is being done, traditional, I say in the Western way of modern agriculture, they're finding that that nutrition levels of the plants are dropping because of the way in which it's grown. And we're looking at now ways, and Echo's not strictly organic. Many of our techniques are organic simply because they don't cost as much money as all the herbicides and the pesticides and the commercial fertilizers. But you're finding that you know where this plant came from. You know what those roots are eating for that plant to grow. And now you're also looking at a plant that is so much more nutritious. And if there's someone listening to this that's a vegetarian, and you think, okay, what am I going to do for my protein of vegetarians? And about, almost everybody just thinks, well, I'll eat tofu or something like that. Right. Of the 1,000 leafy vegetables that people eat, 7 of them are high in protein, very high in protein. Katuk is one of them. Its uptime as much as 47%. Moringa, 27%. Wow. Our research that we're doing in South Africa, funded by the Howard Buffett Foundation, we're finding that there's so much nitrogen, which is where you get your protein from in your moringa, that even when you use it in a compost pile, it kicks the nitrogen numbers up and increases the heat because the nitrogen is needed for the bacteria to grow. So, I mean, there are so many benefits. And these things, these plants, I mean, you talked about squash blossoms, and of course you're using cranberry hibiscus for that, but most people
he's using Moscata.
Moscata, okay.
Yeah. Edible? No, it's the Seminole pumpkin.
Seminole pumpkin.
It was the Seminole pumpkin, not the edible.
That's what I was going to mention, is because people think, well, yes, I mean, if you come from the Northland, you think, well, the last thing I can grow in the hot, humid summertime is a pumpkin or a squash, because powdery mildew and all that stuff. There's a variety called the Seminole pumpkin that thrives in this hot, humid climate down here, and you can grow it here. Well, most people don't even think that that's an option. And here you are not only getting the blossoms, but you're getting the squash out of it as well.
I had a pumpkin last night for the first time. I grilled it.
It'll crawl up the tree for you.
It'll crawl up the tree.
Let me throw this out to the panel. I mean, so why isn't there more of a general awareness? You talked about those 7 plants. Why isn't there more of a general awareness of this? And is this something that this program is going to provide now? More of a general awareness of these
culture. It's a culture problem.
But that's exactly what's happening. That's the serendipity of
that's
what's
what we're
going
doing.
on.
Okay, so this is a real educational process
you have
for
to
the consumer.
split culture with a hammer and an axe and everything. Everybody's eating habits came from Europe in 1642, and they didn't change.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Ross, we're holding you personally responsible.
I'm to blame, right.
So no more peas and
if you now come to Pine Avenue and you walk the street, which is what everybody is doing now, it's just become a great place for people, and you see the gardens and you walk up to the sign, you're getting that information. If you go to Stir It Up, the new yogurt shop that just opened up on the street, they're doing healthy smoothies, and you can take the greens in from the community garden and they'll put them in the healthy smoothie. I don't know anywhere that's doing that.
And the beauty of it is, you talked about community gardens were originally, let's just, kind of goes back to the Victory Garden concept of you can have a little parcel of land. Well, people that are going to walk down Pine Avenue, they're going to look at this thing and say, well, I don't have a piece of land, but I certainly have that much space that I could do something in. And so they're actually going to take those techniques that are going to, that intuitively they say, well, I can't do a garden because I don't have this. I live in a condo, or I'm only here part-time, or I live in a housing area where they won't let me put a tree in. But they'll let you put a tree in a box, in a pot. And they're learning techniques that then they can take home, and they can begin to use those at their house. And now they know how to eat them. They know what they're good for. And it changes their whole mentality about what is edible and what's not edible. And it also changes their health. I mean, you talk about moringa. Moringa's, I mean, it is as close to the tree of life as you can probably get without getting too spiritual in things. This tree grows under the most amazing conditions. I've grown it in Algeria on a salt lake flat area. We have a project, part of our project in South Africa, we're growing it, and we had 45 freeze events one winter, and we're still growing. I mean, we mulch it down, it dies to the mulch, and then comes back as soon as it warms up again. And we got two harvests of leaf off of this. So, I mean, this is a it can grow in various climates. I grew it in the Sahara Desert, and It is incredibly nutritious. You take the leaves, you dry them into a powder, you crush it up, or you dry them and crush them into a powder. 3 tablespoons of that leaf powder, 27% protein, more calcium than a half a liter of milk, more potassium than bananas, more iron than spinach, more vitamin A than carrots. And it has all the basic amino acids, including the ones our bodies don't produce, like lysine. What it does to boost the immune system is just amazing. And we've seen people that were, because we use it on a variety of scales, we've even seen people that were HIV positive, and by taking moringa and eating it on a regular basis, it boosts their immune system to the point that they actually did better than those that were on the antiretrovirals.
Wow.
And it didn't have the negative impact on their body that the antiretrovirals have. Now, I'm not promoting people to do that.
Right.
We're not promoting moringa as a miracle cure for things, even though we've got stories from all over the world of what it's doing. Right. We're saying this is probably one of the most nutritious things you can possibly put into your system.
That tastes great.
Yeah.
That tastes great.
A nutritious thing that tastes great.
And you can
that
eat the
looks
blossoms
good in
and the
your
beans
salad.
and the roots. I mean, you can
As
eat
a
virtually all of it.
restaurateur, you can talk about it because you want something, you want the new thing. And when you're doing that all in combination, I mean, it's just, it's exciting.
Well, you're taking
It
a
really
whole
is
conversation
exciting.
now, aren't you? And also, if you're introducing the different countries involved, now you're starting a whole overall conversation and awareness with these different food products, right?
And things are growing out of this that are so interesting to me. This is really part of our interest in getting involved in these farms has come from this, and then taking this and growing that in the farms. We're going to start composting in our restaurants, and that's because of this. Right. That's because of the awareness that we're gaining, because I'm looking at all the great food that comes into the restaurant and how it goes out as waste, and I want the culture of our operation, which is so important to any business, to be that we care enough that our people will take that extra 2 seconds to separate those and to start a compost buckets and to take those out to the farm and then grow vegetables out of them. I mean, that just makes absolute sense because it's going to be such a great thing to grow vegetables. We're talking about doing that with the mullet waste stream that we've had problems with in the past, and taking that, which will just grow tremendous vegetables and make great compost. So these are the things that are coming out of this. Michael Miller has got a plan to do, and if you go to his Perfect Islands website, and Michael, you need to give that again for those that are interested. Michael is working on something where Google meets, can I talk about this? Yeah, where Google meets Wikipedia.
Perfect environment.
Fantastic.
Michael does native landscape, but not only native to the island, but native to that section of the island. So is it closer to the beach and the dunes, or is it in the middle of the island? And that's what we adopted because it makes all the sense in the world from the not using pesticides and fertilizers and a lot of water. And it's the look of Anna Maria. Anna Maria is a special place because it's authentic. And that look is the look you want. You don't want all manufactured and all these exotic plants and all of that. Those days are gone. It's that authentic look. And so Michael gives you that look, but the Google Meets Wikipedia is so everybody can look and peer review what are the native plants from their area, and are they interested in that? And that can spread, and you can have a map where it goes out and it gets viral, and that's just a movement that'll be great for America.
Let me throw this out to the panel. I mean, what systems are being put into place to help educate the consumer? Because obviously, say for instance, a consumer comes down to Anna Maria, they're looking at the plants and everything else, and they would say want to try them. Is there anything in place right now? You said about obviously with the smoothies. Are there a series of restaurants, obviously your own, etc.?
Too early.
Still too early.
Well, may I
go ahead.
may I debate you on that one? Coming from the tourism and hospitality perspective, and right now, 1 in 12 people in the world work in some facet of tourism. So the first time in history, we've exceeded 1 billion international visitations, and that's projected to go to 1.6 billion in the next couple of years. So people are crossing boundaries at a level that we've never seen before. And when they go places, they want to see the authentic place. So the hospitality and the whole version about sustainability, the impact that hospitality has. For example, we're going to be hosting the 2017 World Rowing Championships down in right in our neighborhood. We will bring 40,000 people from around
Wow.
the world. For the first time, we've had that collection of that volume of people in one place at one time. And so they have to be fed, they have to be housed, they have to provide a great experience for them in all of the aspects of what they're doing. And particularly because wellness tourism, which includes recreational tourism and includes cuisine, all of that, with a group like rowing people, they are elite athletes.
Yes.
So if these are the world's best, they're going to come and want to know what high performance fuel they can get when they go into the restaurants. And by the virtue of that volume coming into our area, you've got the education that starts to ripple into the restaurants, that starts to work with the local people and the hoteliers.
Right.
Let me ask you now, because of the hospitality side, I know from our experience that we're seeing, I mean, on the hospitality, I think as far as an industry is concerned, it's beating out all the other industries, and now it's inclusive of wellness.
Yes.
Where do you see this going? Because, as I said, you know, wellness, hospitality, all of this all tying together. The international aspect even more so now. So where do you see this going? I mean, is a program like this just going to be an integral part of this type of program?
Well, I see hospitality as being able to offer things that when something not so good happens, like Hurricane Andrew in 1992 or 3, that was, I was at the Boca Raton Resort and Club, which is a 1,000-room, at the time, 5-star, 5-diamond hotel. It was projected to hit right in Boca, and we did have $1 million damage to the hotel, but it really hit in Homestead. So we closed the hotel. We had 2,000 employees. We had all the food. We had a full house with a program that was happening at the time. And we started taking our little buses down to Homestead with hot, highly nutritious, good quality meals. We served 60,000 meals in Homestead when there were no other resources to do that immediately after that aftermath. So when you talk about people who know how to feed and house people, when there's any kind of a coastal weather, any situation, who can you turn to? They know how to do it, as well as, you know, the Red Cross and all of the different agencies, but the hospitality is also in coastal areas, which are prone to where a lot of these events happen. So I see people learning from the expertise that our profession offers in helping people in any way that they can.
Well, let me throw this one out to everybody as well. As the far as we're obviously working with the students,
Right.
I mean, what little of experience I've seen with them, they seem to be exceedingly passionate. What are you all seeing from your own different elements when you're working with the students and the kids, as far as just how much do they buy into this, and just how excited are they getting on board with these programs? Ed?
Well, you know, we have such a great opportunity because from what Nan is doing and what the folks at University of South Florida are doing with their hospitality program. The interns from Taiwan that Nan talked about earlier is just such a great example of that. You know, we're disciples of this, and we are spreading the gospel of this wonderful, nutritional, healthy grown plants. And now we're spreading it internationally, and we can do it on we have a lot of people may not know, but over the last 20 years, the culinary program that is available to students now in our area, I saw it with the Village to Chefs event that you sponsored last week, where 17 chefs from all over 25 chefs from all over the world came in. The last time they did it was Paris. Jose Martinez, our great chef from the Maison Blanche, was the member that brought him in here, and they did this at MTI. MTI is a world-class facility, and if you haven't been to MTI, you should go. It's at 6,000 block of East 70, about 6 miles east of the interstate. Go out there and see the program that they have and the facilities that they have and the kitchens they have. And oh, by the way, go for lunch, because they will feed you in the buffet or their sit-down restaurant. And the professionalism, and we've got a great program in Southeast High School, and then we've got MTI, and then we've got USF. So you can matriculate through that. And then we have these programs in our backyards that these students get to learn about, and they get to be disciples, and they get to go out, and it's then in their repertoire, because they do want to know know, they are on the cutting edge. You know, this food movement that is going on localvore, they want to be a part of it. And here is a way that we can show them something that they can take with them and that they can integrate into their bag of tricks, if you will, and that they can be utilizing these products and know about it and get this first information because of what's happened here.
And sometimes they're, you know, sometimes the students, especially the older students, are ahead of us in this movement, but they're ahead of us academically in the sense that they talk about it, they do it, but because they're not adults now, they're not able to do anything about it. And so they all discuss it and talk. And what we're doing now, this is another aspect of the community garden, that as we expand these out there, the most important thing is that they become actual real models. They say, this is what you're talking about, this is what it looks like. This is an instance of it, rather. This is an instance of it. It may not be big, but it's an instance. And one thing that I learned in the design profession, and one thing that we learned with Pine Avenue, that every time you start to do something new like Pine Avenue, or every time you try to design something new, you try to push that envelope into the future. Most people are not designers, they can't tell, they can't read plans, they have no vision. You can explain it all you want, but it just doesn't get across. And so what you do is you go out and you build a model. You just do one. And then you point to it and they say, oh, now I get it. And that's what little bitty Pine Avenue with this, first of all, the restoration project, and then now the boxes, no matter how tiny they are when you go out there and see them, they are a compressed model of a massive program. And then when you go online, you find they're doing this all over the country.
Right.
And then, and then you find Stan.
Yeah.
And
then there's Stan.
What's going on?
Yeah, and then
right here in the backyard.
Not Stan personally, but
But really, I mean, we'd never heard, he's only 90 minutes away from Anna Maria, and none of us had ever heard of it.
Everybody should know about Echo.
And now, and now it's like an integral part of.
When I found out last night.
Yeah.
Talk about bees.
Oh, and then, here's the next thing that happens. So this is a great story, folks. I'm coming over, and there's Michael Coleman, who's the project manager and partner on Pine Avenue, is sitting in front of Papo's Taqueria with his wife having a taco, and I come up to him to tell him something. And Jane says, you know, we've got all these Seminole pumpkin plants, and there are no pumpkins. Why don't we have any pumpkins? And I said, well, gee, I read an article today that there are no bees, and the bees are all dying. Maybe we have a bee problem. And Michael says, oh, bees. How about that guy that gave that talk on the bees the other? Oh, and within 3 days, we installed a hive of 1 million bees on Pine Avenue in a secure, undisclosed location because it's a tiny street. And when you go down to Pine Avenue today and walk between the two boxes at Crescent, you have to sort of go like this to shoo the bees away from the roselle. And I'm looking up my window a mile away at my moringa plant, and the blossoms have these little bees up there, you know, that were never there before.
And my herb gardens on my back porch now have bees visiting.
And so now Michael says, oh, I'm going to get some more for the other end of the street. And I said, well, we just put a box in at Sato Real Estate. They've got a big corner in the back. Let's stick it back at, and this is just like I say, the project leads us.
Right.
And now suddenly we have articles. We had an article, I don't even know the name of it. It's agro business something in Highlands. She called me while I was at Echo paying my bill, and she calls me and tells me, I want to interview you right now. I said, go to our webpage, you know, and there's a press release there that has the whole story, and then call me back. And she did, and she only had to ask me 3 questions after
Maybe
that.
it's time. One more bunch of interactive. Yes, go ahead.
Question back to the children, because you saw this a little bit firsthand.
Yeah.
We took the group of middle school students out to the Three Boys Farm the other day, and that was just wonderful for them to really see state of the art. That farm is like no other.
It's amazing.
And so then they went from there to the Hyatt Regency in Sarasota, where they met the chef. And so the whole conversation was how the chef works with the farmer to find out what's going to be in season. They worked the menu around that. The students had all their questions for the chef. They were very right on, but they care. They understand. And now they can explain that what the chef's perspective is that if they can get food with the roots still attached and take it right to the restaurant, the shelf life is between, instead of 2 or 3 days in the refrigerator, it can go 2 weeks. So there's less waste. And even if there is a higher cost to get the original food, when you calculate that it's fresher, the taste is better, that they really want to serve the restaurants that have discriminating patrons, and that in the end it all comes through. Well, now the middle school students can tell that story, and they were served food that came right out of that garden the day before.
I think actually one of the things that
yeah.
really surprised me when I was there, and I think you, Nan, you would concur with me on this, is when we were actually, when I was watching the kids, I've been on 1 or 2 tours with them beforehand, and there's always a certain degree of disinterest. With this, they were passionately involved. In 1 or 2 cases, you almost had to hold them down from putting their hands up because they had so many questions to ask. So with the international aspect as well, because I'm sure you get the same type of thing that happens in other countries. Could the conversation be where the kids can have more conversation, et cetera, at the same time?
Well, and I mean, it's not just international. We have school groups that come through ECHO. The way we're working with community centers and schools there in our section of Southwest Florida, it's just exciting to see the young people. And it's not just the primary and middle school children and high school students. We're finding that ECHO has an internship program, and many of you have met several of our interns. These are college graduates. We hire 8 interns a year, and we have about 10 applicants for every intern that we hire. And
Really?
And then Epcot, Disney's got interns, and their interns come down and exchange with ECHO, and ECHO goes up there. There is a movement now of college students and young professionals that are moving into this area of, number one, we want to do something that makes a difference in the world.
Yes,
Absolutely.
that's huge.
And the world, I mean, there are times when people need to be fed. When there's a disaster, you need to bring in food because, you know, just as the homestead people, they needed somebody to bring food in. But that doesn't need to go on for 5 years, okay? It needs to go on for a short period of time. Unfortunately, too many times, people are solving underdevelopment issues with relief answers. In other words, they're bringing in food
Yeah, that's true.
for years beyond what those people should be able to be producing their own food.
And I'm assuming usually that they obviously the people that would normally be on that relief would far prefer to be sustainable and being able to do it themselves, correct?
Well, many times they were sustainable before the relief was coming in, and all the food that they were producing now has no value because free stuff has been brought in, and I don't care where you're at in economic scale, and you don't have to have a PhD in economics to know you can't compete with free.
Yeah.
And so those are some of the issues, and young people are seeing that. They're wanting to, I mean, this generation that we're facing right now, more than status, more than money, they want to make a difference in the world.
Absolutely.
And they're finding ways like these gardens, like this agriculture program, and they're also finding out that you don't have to be weird to be involved in this. And I mean, and that's just, no, and I mean, that's just one of the
Here
issues.
we are. Nothing weird about us.
I was going to say, well, I'll take that back again. No, but, I mean, but there has been an image of those who are interested in eating healthy, are interested in buying local, that they're just this kind of weird group hippie kind of attitude. Right. And people are saying, no, that's a subculture thing. We're just saying, we've seen what happens to our children when they're not getting good food. We're finding that it is unsustainable to have people who can grow their own food being fed by someone else. And so there is a demand locally and globally to find ways in which you can build the capacity of the local people. And that's not just some place like Sudan or Ethiopia. It is USA.
I was actually staggered by the, did a little bit of research. I was staggered, it's 195 million people are hungry in the world, literally today. Is that correct?
They actually go to bed hungry. It's close to 200 million people go to bed every night hungry.
So with a lot of this type of program, it's going to basically provide the answers. I mean, as you're saying, within the USA, so you're talking about where they do more of these type of community projects, where there again, it's benefiting the community, it's benefiting business, it's benefiting education and students. I mean, there's so many multifaceted where everybody benefits. So I mean, is there any negatives to this? I mean, somebody said, all right, so here's the top 5 things which you would say as a panel would be the benefits. Well, is there any negatives to this? I mean, I'm not seeing one. I mean, is there anything there?
I haven't found any.
There's some of the little boutique businesses are saying the stuff's growing so high that it's blocking their windows.
Well, it's
That's
time to,
that's really the only
So please harvest.
yes, I was going to say,
Get out
time
there
to
and
cook.
harvest.
Bring
Yeah.
in some goats. They'll
Yeah,
take
bring
care
in
of
some
that for you.
Love goat.
Okay.
Now we're making cheese.
There we
That's
go.
right.
Now we're
And
expanding.
we're having cabrito for a barbecue.
The project leads us on.
You know, we're all looking at the healthcare debate that's
Yes.
going
Oh,
on,
yeah,
and there's
absolutely.
all this about the healthcare debate. You know, the one thing that we need to do as people is we need to change how we eat.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
we have, since the advent of stabilized and genetically altered food and shelf life and growing so it, you know, looks a certain way or doesn't have a blemish on it or anything else, and all of the processed food. I mean, the easiest thing in the world for a middle income family is to go through the drive-in and for $12 get a sack of food that feeds everybody and that they
Yep,
love.
yep.
And if we keep eating that way, you can see it now. The statistics on obesity and diabetes and the spread that's in this country. And if we want to fix the healthcare situation, we have got to eat right, and that is what this movement is all about. And if you can get people interested in this, then they're going to start their journey to converting themselves and looking at the way they eat and get rid of all the trans fats and and eat real food again.
And the
where they know where
yes.
it's coming
And the
from.
benefit of this is it doesn't have to just be a high income level of people who
Right.
have the luxury
Right.
of buying it at, as one friend calls it, one store called Whole Paycheck. We won't say what the real name of that
Yeah, right.
store is,
No,
but
I'm going to, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Sam, but we've got 5 minutes left. And so I'd like to get from the panel on an individual basis to say, for instance, your message. What message would you put out there for people to start getting involved and why they would want to get involved and where they learn, you know, how to get on board with this? So let me, I know that's a kind of a big, you know, bucket there. Ed, can I start off with you?
Well, come to Pine Avenue and see the organic community gardens. You know, you're going to have a great day at the beach. You'll get to go out to some of the good restaurants that are out there and see the shops on Pine Avenue. But go kick the tires.
Right.
Bring a pair of clippers. Bring a little bag and take a little bit of each of the, if you got a QR code reader, or do a little look at the website so you know the 8 or 9 different species we've got in, and get a bag of stuff and start eating it, you know. Give Mike a call, give me a call, and we'll meet you at one of the boxes, and
Yes.
we'll eat a salad in our hand, as we like to say.
Right.
That's really taking shop to drop to a whole nother level, right? Take the produce with you. Nan?
Yes, well, for me, there's another aspect about food, and that is that it brings people together. You know, when you share food with people, it's about the connection that you have with the people that you're sharing it with. And you know, that tasting that we did was just amazing. And so, as with your family or your friends, the idea of being able to cook together and learn and experiment and have fun, understanding these new things, and within a wonderful atmosphere out on the beach or anywhere in your backyard, that to me is the bottom line, because people that you love coming together, being healthy and experiencing the joy of the whole process.
Mike, we've got a couple minutes left.
Yeah.
1
No,
minute.
Yeah, good. Stay
very,
Sum it up.
very short. It's no matter how much you talk about the nourishment and the community aspect and all of these other aspects, the whole list, it all boils down to one thing that we found, is that this is an incredible amount of fun to do this.
Oh, that's,
Yeah.
even,
Yeah.
that's the best
Yeah.
part. Absolutely.
And when my wife and I got our first box going and everything, it was like for weeks we were giddy about it, running through the house talking about what we were going to do with this plant or that plant,
Right.
and it's making it fun.
And that's just everybody loves fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And all the benefits come then as fringe benefits, all the other stuff.
Right. Stan, would you like to kind of wind us up here on your feedback, your input?
well, it's exciting to see how some ideas that were collected from around the world, some plants that were learned about from as far afield as the Sahara Desert, Asia, Southern Africa, Latin America, have found their way not only to a place called Fort Myers, Florida, where ECHO's office is at, but have now, not only that, but they've now echoed around the world, and that echo has hit our region as well. And to see these things happening and realizing that the idea of not giving things away, not feeding people, but teaching them to feed themselves and doing it in a healthier way, And the concept behind this garden is just really exciting to me because, yeah, you can go pick some fresh food, but it's fresh food that you're not used to looking at. You nibble on a piece of moringa leaf and you get this little peppery aftertaste. Yeah. What they don't know is that's glycosinolate, which is the main component for treating stomach cancer, occurs naturally in moringa, and the protein in K-tuck, and you know, there's a cherry tomato that grows down here wild that tastes better than any tomato I've ever gotten, including, don't let my father-in-law hear this, but even better than my father-in-law's tomatoes in North Georgia. So it's so exciting to see how this group is taking an idea that may have come from, or a plant that may have come from half a planet away, and making it work here in a way that just lights people's fire. And not only is it fun and exciting, but probably nothing better for you than what you're doing.
I think actually I could say, just basically to wind things up this last 10 seconds, I've really learned a huge amount here today, but, and I really thank the team at Palace. This has been a real education, but for everybody, I think this is really a case of, it's, you know, there again, it's fun, it benefits business, it benefits the students, benefits the community. I mean, really, what's not to like? So I'd like to thank you all very much. This has been absolutely terrific. I hope to hear a lot more about this in the future. And this is Ross Allard with our team of experts, and thank you very much.